All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We are going to get started here with the final rounds of the poster competition. I have just a few announcements before we start the presentations. First of all, we want to thank everybody who participated again. We had a great turnout for the graduate students, and we also wanted to give a quick shout out to the undergraduates. Next Thursday, they have a Boeing case competition, and they had an amazing turnout. There's 16 teams participating in that competition, so we're really proud of them and all of their activities. Okay, one more quick announcement. In your packet is the scoring sheet for this part of the competition. So if everyone, all the industry participants, if you could pull those out and participate, we'd greatly appreciate it. And we are going to now go to our undergraduate participant and have him come up here and give his presentation.
So it's 2.5 minutes.
Oh.
On email, so.
Sorry, I forgot one thing. The competition is going to be 2.5 minutes for each participant and then 1 minute of questions. So if anyone has a question, it can come from anyone in the audience. Be ready for that.
So, hello everyone. It is lucky to be here as an undergraduate student. I mean, it is for me very surprised I'm the only person to join. But I would like a moment to share my internship experience from CJ Korean Express as a supply chain engineering intern. So, we are starting at the objective point. So the CJ company started last year with the GM Chevrolet with the SKD Center. So what does SKD means? It's basically semi-knockdown center, which is basically see all the car models over here. We kind of disassemble that car and export it to another country in order to reduce taxes. So, but there was a lot of try and errors. Still, that's why I dispatched to the center to provide them a logistic analysis with their with optimization for the factory. So I mean, it's unlucky that I can share my upgrade version of layout for how I can change the system, including the TPS, Kaizen, the Andon, and even the layout for the on-the-job training system. So I will summarize just quickly about how I can find the problems and the key point of my presentation. So I found the problem based on the survey, research, inspection, and the co-workers' feedback. And based on that, I found the two main problems. One is manpower management, and another one is the process management. So I applied the TPS system, as I told you. You guys might want to see it later. And then, and also build the work system so that reduce the cost $10,000 per month for the like a simple mistake. And the also last one is build work them well to remove the bottlenecks.
Okay, great job. All right, so we're going to take a couple questions here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so who has a question?
We'll have 1 minute for questions. Anyone?
All right, well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So what was the greatest learning that you took away from your internship?
So, honestly, I didn't know about TPS system in detail because I didn't take a course yet. But I researched and several companies related to the including GM, Toyota, and Nissan, and I know how to apply that knowledge to the mixed into my company in any situation. So for me, I mean, it's easy to get information and get a feedback with the co-workers, and then I can use that knowledge wisely for my results.
Thank you. All right. Good job. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to start with our graduate students. So the first one, Sadarupa, is going to come up and give her presentation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Satarupa, and I'm a second-year MBA student. This summer, I interned with Praxis Management International, which is a management consulting firm. And I was advising my client, Abbott Laboratories, on business process transformation. So the scenario was, there is currently 400 publications approximately in a year. And there is a forecasted demand of around 800 publications. So the main objective of my project was to investigate the current state analysis and come up with recommendation package in terms of people, process, and technology. So as you see, there are a lot of stuff, and I'll try to make it simpler as best as I can. So I executed the project in 2 sequential stages. First was the current state analysis. So if you see in the right-hand side, this portion is the current state analysis of the Abbott operations. And I evaluated the current state analysis by use of Six Sigma statistical tool known as IDEF, which is a function methodology, modeling methodology, where each function of the publication procedure is being defined in terms of input, output, resources, tools, and mechanism, so that we can easily find out what are the bottlenecks, what are the critical areas of success, and accordingly, based on that, find our recommendations. So this is the main publication procedure, and there are 4 critical areas which have been identified having the maximum cycle time, and which are the areas where we are having the maximum slippages. So once I found out that there are 4 areas, and then took each area, for example, the annual plan, which was the first critical area and the bottleneck, divided this annual plan again into its individual components, and then considered each component in terms of McKinsey's team focus, hypothesis-based framework in terms of people, process, and technology. So process-wise and process, technology, and people-wise, there were 3 hypotheses which were formed, and the overall result was a 50% reduction in cycle time. So the first hypothesis, which was for people, I developed a robust utilization plan for the maximum utilization of resources. For the second, that is hypothesis 2, for processes, I found out what are the processes which are running in sequential manner, and found out that they are actually independent. So we can run them in a parallel way, in a parallel manner, so that we can reduce our cycle time. And the third hypothesis was for technology. So this is the email processes, which is happening in a manual process. And what if we extend our current data vision, which is a software, to mitigate that manual process and replace it
Great, thank you.
So the result was a 50% reduction in cycle time. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
So I have a question. So I heard about lots of Six Sigma black belt, Six Sigma green belt things. So do you think, just one point, what is the weakness and the strength for the Six Sigma?
Okay, I will consider the strength of Six Sigma is that you will leverage a lot on your analytical skills and cultivate it further as you move throughout your career progress. And the weakness is sometimes you become very process oriented. You always try to think in the Six Sigma frameworks, and that kind of constrains your thoughts. So I will consider this as my strengths and weakness.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
whenever you're ready.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Curtis Holman. I did my internship at AGCO Corporation in the spare parts division entitled AGCO Parts. During my internship, I worked in 3 core business areas. First being APIC, which was the newly opened inbounding center. Second was I worked in forecasting and planning, and then I finished my internship working at the assembly plant. During each of these stages, I had clear objectives that I needed to achieve. Related to APIC, I was looking at performance improvement initiatives, and I was able to identify a problem with one of the processes related to overages, shortages, and damaged goods. The main problem with this process was there was a high volatility with the current process. So by using theories related to manufacturing physics, we were able to adjust the current process to decrease this variability by over 40% and increase in effective process time. This had an impact on the bottom line of a 10% cost reduction of temporary labor. After this success, we moved on to forecasting and planning, in which our 2 objectives were to decrease work in process as well as backlogs that were happening. The first step to decrease work in process was to identify when we're actually receiving goods from our many suppliers. We identified that 45% delivered actually on time, another 40% delivered 2 weeks early, and only 10% delivered late. Having this information, we were able to come up with a labor utilization formula in which it would give us recommendations of associates to decrease or to fit our inventory within the target buffer that we had associated with those plants. Next, we also looked at the demand forecast. Using Winter's model, we were able to find that the demand was very consistent from year to year and that it was extremely forecastable depending on the month. This decreased backlog time since there was about a 5-month lead time for most of these products, so having this accurate forecast was very helpful in decreasing the amount of backlogs that we incurred. And our main statistic was the stock to stock that decreased by 33%. And then finally, we reevaluated the logistic methodology. Previously, they were using full truckloads, which increased the holding cost dramatically. We shortened it down to less than truckload to analyze a $4 million annual holding savings. And I would just like to wrap this up by saying none of this would have been possible if I didn't learn all these theories and methodologies here at Cranor and apply them to real-life situations in a quick and easy fashion. Thank you for your time.
Question?
I don't know. One that you mentioned was quick and easy fashion. Do you think that really doing the analytics to prepare you for this is something that you'll face a quick and easy fashion for other projects as well?
This question is specific to finding the data?
Well, so you said quick and easy. I didn't know if you meant in general it was easy to solve these problems or apply these models, or was it more complicated?
Well, every situation is going to be different, and the old consultant answer is it all depends. And for most of the projects, it was relatively easy to find the data and explain it. For example, at APIC, it was very obvious that there was major pain points with the variability. So being able to just show, here's where we're at, this is where we want to be, boom, implementation. Related to the forecasting and planning, before this Winter's model was implemented, they weren't forecasting. As soon as they would make a sale, they're like, great, contact our manufacturers, let's start making it. 5 months later, we'll give it to you. Unacceptable, especially when we had such strong correlation from each year of how much sales that we could actually incur. And then finally, this logistics piece was the hardest to implement. It really was. And this is why I didn't go over it, but this was the deciding factor. Why we were reevaluating the logistic methodology was because there was a capital request to increase warehouse space because they just weren't pushing through enough inventory. And so during this reevaluation of just saying, hey, if we just cut this full truckloads to less than truckloads, we're going to have savings. That wasn't enough for them. We needed to show that we're going to decrease the amount of floor space that you're going to need, which is going to increase our capacity, which is a reason why we don't need to invest that $1 million. So this number only affects this, but there is also money saved here from not reinvesting the warehouses.
I think we just have time for one question, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mani Ramesh. I'm a second-year MBA student with the Kraner School of Management. I did my summer internship with Amazon Fulfillment in one of the largest fulfillment centers based out in Lexington, Kentucky. So Amazon's outbound operations deals with shipping the products from their inventory to the customers. And the pack process is the last sequence in their outbound operations. So the objective of my project was to reduce the defects in the pack process. The way I went about dealing with this problem was first to collect the data of what were all the defects in the process and do a Pareto analysis. It's an 80-20 rule where 80% of the effects are due to 20% of the causes. And I was able to identify what were the top 3 defects in the process which were majorly contributing to reducing the throughput. Once I identified, it was one of like weight out of tolerance, which was weight not conforming to standards, scanner 1 failure, which was like scanner doesn't scan a package, missing packages where associates fail to complete an order. These were considered as defects, and then I went about doing the root cause analysis, used the 5 whys and fishbone analysis to get to the point where exactly it's going to fail in the process. I had to involve myself in the process, do it myself to understand why exactly it was failing, to deal with the solutions. The way I went about dealing with the solutions was to follow PDCA cycles. It stands for plan, do, check, act, where it's an iterative model where you go about implementing in a pilot-based system. The important part here was engaging the associates because Amazon was very labor intensive and I had to motivate them to understand why they need a change in the process. These are some of the implementations I did after the PDCAs, and as you can see, this is the before and the after part where I changed the design, where I changed, this is the design change in the workstation where I dealt with scanners and photo eyes, all technological things with the help of the facilities team. And I also implemented some Pokayoke solutions by mechanical guidance systems. As you can see, gradually I improved, I reduced the defects in the processes, and overall I was able to reduce the defects in million opportunities by nearly 17% at the end of my internship. The overall goals achieved was a major improvement in quality because I was able to push up the throughput yield, and I was able to reduce the cost by nearly $20,000 per month. Thank you.
Questions?
You wrote Pokayoke solution, so what sort of a solution did you apply?
So Pokayoke is a mistake proofing technique. So one of the issues here was the conveyor here is a very big conveyor, and we have like different sizes of packages. So when an associate throws a packet on the conveyor, sometimes if you can see the envelope, due to air and due to the orientation, the scanners was not able to exactly scan the label of the packages. So what it exactly had to do was it has to go in a particular orientation, and because of the mechanical vibration in the system, it was turning up. So I designed something called as it's a mechanical guidance system based on like an aluminum rod with the help of the engineers, where I can exactly make the packages orient in a way where it has to go to the scanner. It's a very simple solution, but it was able to completely eliminate the packages turning in the process. Yes?
Have you thought of identifying the root cause for the weight variations?
Yes, definitely. So one of the major root causes here was they did not have a quality check at the start of the process itself. The entire quality check happens at the end of the process, and this constitutes a major factor in increasing the defects. So the weight out of tolerance is based on a software logic they use, and Amazon is heavy on FBAs, which is called Fulfilled by Amazon, which is they source outside vendors, and they did not have any kind of quality check to see whether they are inputting the right data. So there were a lot of data variations, and the system could not identify which was the correct one and which was the wrong one. So weight out of tolerance is actually 80% of them were not defects, it was all false defects.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Monica Ravi. I'm a second year MBA student. And that was me all lost initially in the Amazon Fulfillment Center this summer. Just put a problem statement in a simple terms. Think of a guy who's going to go grocery shopping for, let's say, 10 of his customers. It makes more sense for him to consolidate all the lists and make it into one and then shop, so it makes easy rather than going by one. So coming back to this, in this aspect, it's 1 million units, million orders, and it's a much bigger fulfillment center. And what happens at Amazon is they pick it up and it has to go to packing and it has to reach the truck on time. So what's happening with the current consolidation processes, either they're collating a very low number of orders, so the associate had to walk a lot, else they're collating too much that it's never reaching the truck on time, which it's about to leave for the next 1 hour. And how this works is in Amazon, they have a software for the collating, and they usually consolidate a particular number of orders and this is right now, it was happening based on the guesswork and most of the speculation of the managers. So my objective was to standardize this in order to optimize the pick productivity, make it easy for the managers to do the settings and save their time, and above all, to protect the customer experience risk. And the way I looked at it was I've analyzed the charge, that is the number of orders coming to the fulfillment centers. I broke it down into hourly for each day of the week. And for that particular charge pattern, I've seen what is the pick productivity that we are having. And to my surprise, I see there was no dip at all, which means that the more the number of orders you're trying to collate, the better the picking productivity is going. And that was the eureka moment of my project, because if that is the case, the only thing the breaking point would be to stop it at the risk analysis. Basically, find out a point where it's at a customer experience risk, and then that is the point to stop. So what I've done, I've built an Excel tool which with an inbuilt macros which pulls up the number of orders for the fulfillment center. It divides by the number of labor hours that we have to show at what capacity we currently are at. And then I've run a Kaizen to see that, to standardize these settings. So let's say at 40% of the risk, probably collate it for a day. At 20% of the risk, leave it for 2 days open, and at 60% of risk, do it only for like 2 hours of your next orders. So what this led to is the associates were quite happy because they were able to pick a lot more while walking in the same path. And there were no more air shipments because there were no missings and everything is happening by road. So that's a lot of cost.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Come on, someone has a question. All right.
You put a number against the savings that you were able to do by reducing air shipments?
Right. So it's not in terms of air shipments. I can say that 350,000 was the number of labor hours saved, because the same amount of work is being done probably in 6 hours, which was spent like 12 hours previously before my project was executed.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I actually feel like a minority here amongst all supply chain and operations people. My name is Zanita, and I'm a second-year MBA student here at Purdue, and I'm majoring in HR and strategy. So I did my internship this summer at Vortness Solutions, which is a software company based in Washington, D.C. And this software company actually develops software which is used for polling. Some of its clients were the Emmy Awards, the Directors Guild Build Awards, and then they also did customized software packages for unions and for board elections. So when I went to this particular company, there was no HR department per se. So they got me inside to tell me how to actually make me be the person responsible to strategize how an HR function would actually work in an organization like this. So I started off with what was there in the company. The current state was that there was very low engagement level and there was a lot of communication gap between the departments. The vision of the CEO, who I worked directly with for this particular initiative, was to be the most thoughtful company in the world. And by integrating the current state and the vision, I came up with a recommendation which was to increase the employment engagement level by taking more initiatives. Now, why do we need employee engagement? The most important reason for us to have employment engagement in any organization in the world today is for customer satisfaction and the business bottom line. So when you have engaged employees, they give they provide better services, and there's better retention, so you have the talent in-house and you have greater productivity at the end of the day. When you provide better services to the customer's satisfaction index increases, which means that there's customer loyalty, your customers are not going to leave you, and you have more referrals, which brings us to why businesses are there. That is to make profit. So if you have more customer loyalty and more referrals, your business bottom line obviously increases. Now towards the implementation part, I started off with communicating why the change was necessary and what it means to be engaged in an organization and why it is important to them and to the organization as a whole. After that, I rolled out a survey and did an ideas wall where basically they had to give their suggestions what they wanted the companies to implement. Then we evaluated the results, we brainstormed as to what would be in the short term, what initiatives we would take in the medium and the long term goals, and then it was time for change. And the different recommendations that we had after brainstorming and evaluating the results were these, which are all in line with the core values of the company. Thank you, and I'm open to take any questions you might have. Yes?
Maybe it's not about the presentation, but by the way, I envy the MBA presenters' skills. By the way,
Thank you.
They're all well prepared. So one thing that I want to ask about I am helping one of the students who is in the undergraduate. Okay. He's kind of like tried to create the company. So he asked me to help. So I'm kind of, as a project manager, I was like building a basic HR things.
Oh, that's
but
great.
The great challenge that I have is how can you like manage people, especially without the money and commission?
Okay.
Because I try to grow the prioritize of them. Of course, the school, the class is first, but we understand that. But except that, how can I find the people who are responsible enough to work with even they spend less time on it? It doesn't matter. But how can I find the people who is very responsible? Or do you have any idea that is without the money?
Okay, all right. So there is a study that says that when it comes to employee empowerment, you need compensation, autonomy, and freedom. But then after a certain level, the compensation ceases to exist for that particular person's engagement. So one of the ways in which you can actually have more productive employees in the workplace would be if you could increase their autonomy and freedom to do the work the way they want to do it. And then compensation would be something that they wouldn't care about after a certain point. So if you can look into this, where I'm saying pursue opportunity, solicit employee feedback, and thank you note. A small thank you goes a long way into building a relationship with an employee or with any person in the world. So when it comes to that, I think if you have a simple thank you note and you give them an autonomy on the task that they are assigned to, that will cut down your costs, if that's what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to all of our participants. We'll find out the winner here shortly. All right, so now we're going to move on to the second session, or the second part of our day.
So I guess I'm just collecting. To repeat.
Okay.
They're off. Thanks. Thank you. Clicker isn't working, so we can. You've only done it.
Are you ready? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to our next speaker. I have the pleasure to introduce Kara Kirtland, sorry. She has been with HP for 16 years, developing and diffused best practices in inventory management, network design, forecast accuracy, SKU reduction, product planning, manufacturing, and distribution. She got her bachelor and master's from Purdue University in industrial engineering. And in her personal time, she likes to spend time with her husband, her 2 sons, their dog, hiking, camping, reading books, traveling, and watching movies together. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kara.
Thank you. All right, so thank you everyone for being here today. It's really an honor to be able to come back and be on campus. It's always fun to come back and see. I was saying to some which way the roads go, what kind of new construction is happening. That's always great. So we don't need to talk too much about me. I just want to point out I am at HP. I've been there for 17 years, and I have had sort of a blessed time. I've always enjoyed what I've done. I've been able to work in a lot of different areas. Right now, I'm a strategist in the Strategic Planning and Modeling Group, which is essentially a special forces group that goes out and gets to work on high-value projects all the time. And it's just a ton of fun because we get to work across all different functions with all different people all the time. And that all started right here. While I was here, I actually was able to work in the technical assistance program, and that hopefully some of you are getting an opportunity to work there. It's my first experience with consulting and actually doing real work was going out and working with small Indiana businesses with industrial engineering concepts, much like what you guys just talked about here today. Those are my kids and my husband, and where I love to spend my time is out on the mountain. So, but I was asked to talk about women in career as one of my topics, and I've gone to a lot of women's conferences, and there's people that are much more prepared to speak about the various differences between women and men and why they're different. But my advice is, guess what? We're really not that different from a career standpoint. And the things that make women succeed are the same things that make men succeed. So concentrate on those things, right? And so this is for all of you, not just the women in the audience, right? First of all, and it was mentioned this morning, you got to do what you love, right? That starts at the very beginning. Hopefully you're here because the program that you're studying is really about the stuff that really excites you. You have to know what you do best, what you like. You have to be comfortable in your own skin with, hey, what's going to excite me day after day after day? And if you get a job that you don't love, move on. Go find something else, right? If you have a manager that you can't work with, go find something else. If you get into a job, and it was mentioned earlier with the panel, where your values aren't aligned with your manager or the organization that you're with, go find something else, right? So do what you love, know what you love, improve in that area, and don't try to be the best at everything. Go be the best at the stuff that you really like. And then hire people to surround you that do the other stuff that you don't like, but they do it really well, right? Or if you're not a manager, I'm not a manager, I do a lot of program management, work with people, pull people into your team, right? Make sure that you're surrounded by the people and you have a full team that can do the right things for the business, okay? Next. Okay. Integrity and responsibility. It's supposed to be the words up there. So, in the middle. So, it's core to getting anywhere in the world, right? You may find that you're on a project team with 3 or 4 people and one person isn't doing what they need to be doing. That happens here. That happens in the real world. But let me tell you, that what's important in that situation is that you make sure that your project team completes what needs to be done. That you, if you sign up to get something done, you make it happen, regardless of what's going on around you, right? If you're late to a meeting, it's not because your alarm clock didn't go off or because traffic was bad. It's because you weren't in control. Because you didn't leave early enough, because the traffic is always there, right? So don't make excuses. If something goes wrong, own it. You will be appreciated much more for honesty, integrity than anything else. And you want to be able to look back at the end of your career and be able to look yourself in the face and say, did I do the right thing? Okay? And the last, teamwork. So I thought about doing the whole presentation about basketball, actually, because I thought so I played a lot of basketball over the years. I grew up in Illinois. I was varsity. I was a point guard. I started out very young, and at Purdue, of course, probably you would all relate to all the analogies that I could make about basketball. But a couple of stories that I want to tell. So my freshman year, my team played man-to-man defense, and it was running the entire time. We won our first couple of games, and then the third or fourth game, I'm out there, and we're down by a few points. And our coach calls a timeout. We go over. You got to do better on defense. Better on defense. Get on your man. Do it. We go out, and I am on my man. Let me just, my man doesn't